we can still make it through here. Okay, let me share my screen. We'll get started. Today is July 6th, 2022. I'm Ben Greiner, Director of Apple Technology at Ntiva. And with me today is Ross Matsuda, our Systems Administrator focused on the Apple platform. You see my screen, Ross?
Yes, indeed. Looks good.
Okay, awesome. And today's topic is Mac servers are dead. I added the extra part, dead to me. We actually created this topic early in the year, and then Apple officially killed Mac OS X servers. So we've been touting the death for quite a while. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, some news. I did want to point out that Google continues on its updating. How many updates have we seen this year, Ross?
I wish I could count that high, Ben, but I only have so many degrees.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it already, there's a security bug in Google Chrome, and there is an update. Is it out now, or are we still waiting for the update?
It looks like it was published. I'm waiting on some verification from Addigy before we get that live and out to everyone's machines. But if you're on an enrolled Mac, we're going to make sure that this gets installed for you automatically in the background, so long as the application is closed. It will not install while the app is running in order to prevent you having any problems on your machine or the session getting kind of weird. And so it'll wait until the next time you quit out of the browser. It'll do that for you silently in the background.
And I have personally shied away from using Chrome recently, but I've been using Microsoft Edge, and I think that's based off of Chromium.
That's correct.
So will it have the same problem, you think?
It's plausible. I can't say for certain. I know that Brave, my primary browser, is also Chromium based, and so I'm keeping my eyes open, and it'll usually badge itself if there's an update available. Yeah, that's been an interesting question for the security team to see which of these, if they're aware, affect the Chromium platform itself rather than just the Chrome browser.
Yeah, we're still learning about this. This was just announced. And if your machines are enrolled in our system, they will get Chrome updates. Do we patch other browsers? We do patch.
We do patch Firefox as well. And if you are an office that is running Edge as your primary browser, please let us know, because we could look into automating that. Updates to Safari we also handle usually on a monthly basis as those come out, which is pretty infrequent, I think, compared to some of these other browsers. So it's usually not as hectic. Yeah,
and if you do use another browser and you feel you need help with that, let us know so we can investigate if we can add that to our patching schedule. And speaking of security, I just want to remind everyone, Mac OS Monterey, specifically 12.4, that's the very latest. That's what we want to see all of our clients on. If you're a primary contact, you have access to VisionBot, where you can see the status of your team. We send out what are called nudge updates to nudge and encourage people to apply these updates. The reason we don't blindly apply them is because they require restarts, and we don't want to surprise anyone with an unexpected restart. So if you're not on Mac OS Monterey or you're not on 12.4, let us know so we can help you get there. Because sometimes we need the nudging of people in the actual client location to kind of encourage their team to do this.
One piece of trivia to throw out here on this, when you receive one of those nudge windows from us, that is an indication that there is a point update, not an upgrade, available for your computer. So in this situation, if you're running Mac OS Monterey and you're on an older version of Monterey, 12.2.1, 12.3, you're going to receive a nudge that says, hey, 12.4 is available. Click here. There's a security update available. Let's do the thing. If you're on a fully updated version of macOS Big Sur, which is last year's operating system, or even previous builds, you'll only get a nudge to let you know that there is an update available to get you to the newest version of that operating system. We will not be sending out these sorts of notifications to try to encourage you to go from Big Sur to Monterey. That tends to be that's a very different project than, right? These smaller things to make sure that if Apple pushes a security update, it hits your machine, you're taken care of. rather than these more grandiose changes that sometimes occur with OS upgrades.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Ross. So Nudge will nudge you to apply updates. Those are patches, incremental upgrades. They're a much bigger project. And we do have in Mac Manage the ability to apply upgrades. Here's a screenshot of install Mac OS Monterey. We have an entire process that we would recommend you follow. So if you're not yet, if you're on 10.11, is that Big Sur?
Mac OS 11, yes.
Mac OS 11, Big Sur, or anything older than that, contact us so we can help you get to Monterey. That'll make sure you're up to date, most recent security patches, most recent version of Safari, all the good stuff, and it prepares you for what's coming in the fall, which, what's the name of that?
It is Mac OS Ventura.
Ventura.
Mac OS Ventura is Mac OS 13. That's coming around the bend. The other great thing about making sure your OSs are up to date is that also means that you're going to be, more than likely, you'll be immediately compatible with new releases from the vendors for your business critical software. How great is it to know that your entire fleet is ready to go, and then something new comes out from Extensys or from Adobe, and your computer is going to be able to handle all of the most recent features that are put out by that, because you're running on a contemporary operating system, not something that's 2-3 years out of date.
Yeah. So it really is a group effort. Please reach out to us so we can help you get your team up to date. If you don't know where your team stands, use VisionBot. If you don't know what VisionBot is, either you're not a primary contact or we need to get you into VisionBot. So, ask questions. I did want to let everyone know that Apple has officially announced that the new MacBook Airs with the M2 chip are available for order this Friday. There's a slight increase in price. The base used to be $999, now it's $1199. You can still buy the M1 MacBook Air for $999. At least last I checked, you could, Ross. I don't know if they'll eventually, get rid of that. I don't know. I haven't actually looked into that. But so I know for those that need computers right away, you probably want to continue to buy whatever they have in stock, which is going to be the M1 MacBook Air, because it's still a very nice machine at a lower price. But if you can wait and you want to get the latest and greatest, spend a little bit more money, then the MacBook Air M2 is available for order on Friday. And I think they're estimating ship times of a couple weeks. So looks like not too bad. I don't know if they'll be able to hold true to that or not. I grabbed this image because I thought it was interesting. If you haven't heard, they brought back the MagSafe, which basically frees up a port, because you only had 2 USB-C connections and you had to use one for charging. So that only left you with one other one. Now they've kept those, but they've given you the MagSafe, and the MagSafe with a cloth, is it?
Yeah, braided cable. It is a handsome cable, and more than anything else, I'm just ecstatic that they acknowledge the fact that MagSafe was and still is and shall hopefully continue to be an incredible technology. It was designed very well from the get-go. The failure rates of them kept dropping as they went from MagSafe 1 to MagSafe 2, and now that MagSafe 3 is back in business, it's just a wonderful convenience thing. If memory serves, you can still charge using the Thunderbolt ports.
You can, yeah.
So you have even more flexibility, but if you have access to a MagSafe adapter, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was, this past weekend, my phone was low and I wanted to charge it. And the only cable I had was a USB-C cable. My phone's not USB-C. But then I remembered, I can pull juice from my iPad. So I plugged my iPhone into my iPad using the USB-C cable and charged my phone. So it's interesting how there are lots of options when it comes to charging, but sometimes it can be confusing. And Ross, I just wanted to share something. I was at Apple Park a couple weeks ago, and there's a photo I took at the visitor center. I did not actually go into Apple Park. I went to the visitor center across the street. They have a very cool coffee shop there. Last time I was there, it was closed because of COVID. This time it was open, so I got to go. Coincidentally, I got COVID on that trip.
God.
So yes, COVID is still out there. Beware. I took all the precautions, but picked up COVID, and then that's why my voice is still a little off this week. So, but
Understood.
a very cool place if you get a chance to stop by the Cupertino, California area. Okay, let's see. I mentioned last month new email and phone number, and I'm still waiting for Ntiva to update the webpage so I can actually show you that webpage and show you that information. It hasn't happened yet, so not a big deal. Old information will continue to work. New information will also work when we get that posted, and I'll make it more clear probably next month what that is. And by the way, when we update that, we'll be updating support menu, contact information. So there's nothing anyone really needs to do. I always encourage our clients to use support menu for our phone number and opening a new support request. Okay, Mac OS X server, rest in peace. Apple officially killed server on April of this year. So just a couple months ago. And although technically the last update, major update we saw from Mac OS X server was, or Mac OS server was, I think in like 2015 or something.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Because they made a major overhaul to it, going from Sierra to High Sierra, Mac OS 10.12 to 10.13, and then there were some more incremental changes over the years. But it's time. Long and short of it, it's just time.
So I started my business originally called Forget Computers in 1998. So 1999 was an exciting time. We got Mac OS X server, and we spent quite a few years in this workflow where we were trying to get people off Windows servers onto Mac servers. And then the Mac servers eventually, like 10 years later, started frustrating us, and the SMB technology with Apple got better. So we said, you know what, you need to go back to Windows servers. And so it was funny because I would have conversations in the early 2000s trying to get people off Windows servers, and then that same group of people, I was having conversations trying to get them back on Windows servers. And today we're pretty much at the cloud. And this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, for those of you who are still running Mac OS X server, or even if you're running Windows Server on premise, I want to talk about this. Or I threw in here a NAS, a network attached storage. Now, I personally, this is my view. You will still find people out there, Ross. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you'll surprise me. But people who really like to control their file server on site, whether it's with a NAS or a SAN or a Windows server, or there are lots of options still out there. There just isn't Mac OS X server software. I believe that unless you have a full-time in-house IT department that really wants to take this on, I believe no business has any business doing an on-premise file server. There is one exception, which I will get to on the next slide. But the majority of clients, large and small, would really benefit from going to the cloud. And I remember the early days of the cloud, there were some frustrations. Internet was slow. Internet's a lot faster now. The software was clunky. It's a lot better now. And there were security concerns. And really, I think that's completely flipped on its head. I mean, it's almost harder to protect on-premise server these days than a cloud server in many ways. But and now we're all working from home, or a lot of us are, and trying to remote into a local server is a real bottleneck. It's just very difficult on that infrastructure. So when you calculate the infrastructure, the electricity, the backup, the maintenance, even upgrades, like it's not easy to upgrade an on-premise server. It's not like the cloud where you can upgrade things in the background. So really, you got to be on the cloud today. And there is one exception to that that I've seen, and that's if you're video editing, like video workflows. Those are still very intensive workflows. I'm not saying they can't be done on the cloud, but Ross, for years, we started with our non-creative clients. They were the easiest to move to the cloud. And then we built confidence moving our, what I would call creative pro clients, those that were doing desktop publishing and web design and Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator and, even InDesign. And the last group is really the video editors. And video editing is kind of a different beast. We could talk a whole bunch about it, but I will say there are two companies that we have been talking with, and in fact, I have meetings with them this afternoon. I wish I could have had those meetings yesterday afternoon. Now I could talk more about it. But Scale Logic has a system for on-premise storage that they've also built a remote access option, so you don't have to go through a VPN. You can go through their system to get to your on-premise file server. And then Quantum has always had solutions, but they've been super expensive. They now have a more small business entry-level product that we're investigating. So I would say these are two areas to start if you are investigating a video workflow. Of course, talk to us. This is all high level. I'm not saying go do this without having some more discussions. But this is the only exception. If you're doing video work, you might still need something on premise. Ross, would you agree with that? Disagree with that?
Yeah, no.
Did I say anything wrong?
Not yet. I do have a Synology NAS at my apartment.
And you're a professional, Ross. You're an IT professional.
That's where I store lots of old images of operating systems of days gone by. But generally speaking, for the vast majority of your workflows, you're going to want things to be cloud stored. There is nothing more taxing than when you have a split, sort of like a hybrid work environment like we're seeing now. So a lot of offices are starting to open up again to a limited degree, but in order to maintain that, that personnel are retained, they're still offering the work from home option for those who it's a much better option for, which is great. But that means you've got some people using your internet bandwidth at the office, and depending on your storage solutions, you may have multiple people off-site, maybe even in different states, all hitting that same pipe just to get access to your locally stored files on a server in your office. That additional bandwidth can end up, either slowing things down or possibly pushing you to look into a more expensive internet plan, right, for your office. And then now that's an additional cost you have to deal with that has nothing to do with the quality of life of anyone in your office. It's people who are outside premises anyways, that are still taxing that bandwidth through a single pipe. And so getting into cloud storage is going to be a wonderful, wonderful choice. The management tools for it are much more agile, much more intuitive than they have been in the past. Like Ben said, the security for them is also top notch because there's only so much you can do with your internal InfoSec team, especially for a small organization, to reduce your footprint. But these major companies, they have the sheer amount of resources they have to push at their security is enormous, and may as well take advantage of their investment in that infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the cloud storage options, because there are a few that we need to address and a few that I would encourage people to investigate. And on the far left, that's the symbol for Microsoft OneDrive. Now, OneDrive, honestly, is like not my favorite solution, but it's the one that most every company has. If you're Office 365 based, if your email is at Office 365 or Microsoft 365, as it's now called, you do have OneDrive, whether you know it or not. You have the ability to use OneDrive. And it used to be that any and all of these cloud storage options were a little awkward because you had to pick and choose what you wanted to sync locally. And these solutions have gotten much more intelligent. So they will show you everything online. Let's say you have a terabyte of storage, but only a 256 gig hard drive. So 1/4 the size of your online storage. You will see all 1 terabyte. You can search all 1 terabyte, but it will download as necessary things that you click and drill down into, or you can selectively choose to sync. So even though there is still the possibility you could try to sync more than you can actually hold on your computer, for the most part, this software is much more intelligent and much more reliable than it was in the early days. And I use OneDrive. I must admit, I use it mostly online just because I don't use it enough that I need it to live locally. So that's an option too. You could literally just use files online and download them as needed. But they do have a solution that works. It's much better. It works on the Mac. The equivalent to that in the Google world is Google Drive. And Google is very similar. You can live online, as they built that to live online, really. And then they've added additional features to sync with your Mac OS. So we do have clients running both. In some cases, we have clients who have Microsoft Office for email, and then they have Google for file storage. It's not maybe the best solution, because if you want to get the all-in-one, you really probably should standardize on one platform or the other, but it's personal preference. And if you prefer the experience of Google Drive over OneDrive, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, they're doing essentially the same thing, just with a different look and feel, much like Mac and Windows. Now, I want to talk about the two on the right. The Box is one of them, and Ignite is the one on the far right. We have been using Box for quite a while, or we have clients, excuse me, using it for quite a while, and I really like it. It's also gotten much better in its ability to search everything, several terabytes of data, but not have it, copied locally on your computer. All of these solutions have gotten better at working on iPhones, iPads, Mac, and of course Windows and the web browser. The reason we were drawn to Ignite was we were looking for a solution that was very cloud and creative friendly, and Ignite fit the bill. A little bit more, I felt, than Box at the time. Ignite spoke to working with Adobe files and large Photoshop files, and more importantly, it could mount a server from the cloud just like a Mac could mount a local server. It looked the same, it felt the same. We could control the naming, which meant we could move entire terabytes of files from a local storage to a cloud storage and keep the file path, so all the links and embedded links were not broken. And that was something unique. And at the time, this is before the pandemic, they had a local storage box that could sync with the cloud. So when you were in the office, you were working locally. And when you were outside the office, you were working through the cloud, and those were synced. Now, COVID upended all of that. Nobody goes back into the office. So I don't even know if Ignite's still developing the local storage. I know we haven't touched it. We're now 100% cloud-based with anyone using Ignite. So if you're a heavy creative shop, I recommend you look at Ignite as an option. But I will say, Box continues to improve, and improving at a rapid pace. And I feel more and more comfortable recommending Box for almost anybody. And there's one feature of Box that really sets it apart that no other platform has, and that is Pages, Numbers, Keynote. The iWork suite from Apple does work with Box if you want to collaborate online. So when I say collaborate online, the iWork suite gives you the option to host a file on a cloud server at iCloud or at Box and invite others in to collaborate. They can collaborate online, they can collaborate on their desktop, but you're essentially multiple people working on the same file. It's a very unique niche workflow. I'm not even sure I fully recommend it because there can be some challenges to it, but I know we have clients who love it and use it and they won't give it up. So in that situation, you have to use iCloud, which I do not recommend as a file storage solution. But if you don't have Box, you pretty much have to use iCloud if you want to collaborate in that aspect. So what this tells me is Apple supports Box. I know from my own dealings with internal conversations with people at Apple, they use Box. They share files with me via Box. Apple obviously worked with Box to develop this. So Box and Apple get along really, really well. And we have seen several clients who start out with Microsoft OneDrive because it's included. They're not paying anything extra for it. And and then they've evaluated Box and decided to make that their file storage solution. They still use Office 365. They still have their email and maybe some file collaboration. They may even use OneDrive as a supplement, but their main file storage is Box. And I think that comes down to personal preference and workflow and what people feel comfortable using every day. So Ross, I just spent a lot of time spewing a lot of stuff. I should have asked more questions and had got you involved. But what's your take on this?
There's a lot of great options. The thing that's important to bear in mind when you're looking at these sort of cloud solutions is that a lot of times there's these fringe benefits that are attached to each of them. And it has a lot to do with what you do as an organization and how your team likes to do it. Because all of these options, yes, they have things that they can really shine in. Ignite's local storage option, the idea of having a local distribution point for an enormous, multiple terabytes cloud storage solution is fantastic if you do have, in-house designers hooked up to that system via fiber. Great, mm-hmm. They're going to have spectacular performance. Just make sure that you've got the bandwidth at your office so that those changes can sync eventually up to the cloud. And then the other platforms, they all are connected to productivity suites, right? So if your office is primarily using the Microsoft apps, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint for what you build, it kind of makes sense to at least try out OneDrive and SharePoint. Mm-hmm. If you're an office that has you're split and half of your fleet is Macs, and you've also got some Chromebooks in your fleet, and everyone's using Google Drives and Google Doc Sheets, it makes sense to maybe look at that particular tool. And then Box is sort of like what I would consider the more pro version of using iCloud. And then on top of all of that, there's an additional layer of, especially for Microsoft and Google, these are connected to identity providers, right? And so if you're using SSO, if you have an HR department that's managing the onboarding and offboarding of employees, suddenly all of those accounts are connected as well. I believe that Box can plug into Azure. I think they can also plug into Google as far as just-in-time account creation. Mm-hmm. And so also bear in mind that all of these platforms, they're all trying to achieve the same thing, which is just making sure that your entire team can access the same battery of files wherever they go globally without absolutely wrecking havoc through a VPN of your office internet. On top of that, you then have some nuances to consider about what applications work best for your team in your industry and how everyone likes to get their job done. And then as you branch out of the tech side of things, how does your HR department handle it? Onboardings, offboardings, account provisioning. Mm-hmm. Because the identity provider side of this can be incredibly powerful, especially if you're not using any identity provider functionality yet. More and more is being built into that, and it does integrate with iOS and with Mac OS. You can start really doing some really powerful things with that. And so it's lots of great things connected.
What I've seen, Ross, is that if a company doesn't pick one of these, then their team will naturally gravitate to multiple solutions, which can be troublesome. Like even if you will never eliminate the need for multiple solutions, you should pick one and say, this is our primary file server. This is what we standardize on. This is where everything gets stored and documented and accessed. And yeah, you may have some fringe use cases. Maybe you work with a partner or a client who you collaborate better on in Google, even though you standardized on Box. So there could be some of those instances, but you really need to pick one and go as deep as you can with it and try to eliminate the others. And notice that I haven't mentioned a few file storage options, which I will now, but I don't recommend them really. It is iCloud. It's for personal storage. It's not built for business. Dropbox, even though they have a business solution, I still feel like it's more personal or really like micro business. It doesn't seem to scale well for small businesses. And then Adobe Cloud Storage is still super confusing to me and frustrating that Adobe, had an opportunity to basically maybe integrate like Apple did with Box and go deeper with one of these providers. And they seem to have dropped the ball and tried to do it themselves and done it in a very convoluted way. If anyone is using Adobe Creative Cloud, let me know. I think there might be a use case for storing templates or shared libraries in the Adobe Cloud so that your team has access to that. But true full-on file storage, I just don't see it having everything that Box has or any of these solutions that we're showing here.
And especially when Adobe still updates their outward-facing documentation that always says, are you working on a file on cloud storage? Copy it locally to your computer before editing it for your best results.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't work with a cloud storage provider who says you must copy things locally first. So let's see. So this is really high level introductory, but if you're running macOS server or any on-premise solution, talk to us so we can help you determine, what to do next. And as Ross mentioned, it is a real personal choice here, and it depends on your team and your workflow and what you want to accomplish. In fact, when we had to make a decision of what cloud we were going to standardize on before joining Ntiva, our small legacy team, we really wanted to align with our clients. Where are our clients? And the majority of them do live in Microsoft 365. We have some Google, and I think Google is growing in popularity. But at the end of the day, as Ross said, they're very much providing the same service, just in slightly different ways. Next month, we're going to be talking about security. Macs need security too. And I say that because sometimes we forget as Apple device users that we've lived relatively free of the security problems that have plagued Windows for many years, but that has completely changed. And most of the security threats today do not care what platform you're on. So we'll be talking a little deeper into that. But thanks everyone for joining us. I appreciate it. And Ross, enjoy the rest of your week.
Cheers. Take care, everyone.
Bye.